It's time for the Prete Is On with Dave Prete here on 92.1 The Team, WCKR Hornell. Here's Dave Prete.
Welcome to the show, everyone. This is your host, Dave Prete, and we are just finishing up week 3 of what I call the coronavirus lockdown. And I wish I had good news regarding the coronavirus lockdown, but the numbers since our show last week have doubled for the number of confirmed cases in our country, up to 250,000 cases now. To put that in other terms, 250,000 cases in the United States, definitely taking its toll. And if you listen to any of the reports, whatever source you follow, they've all been telling you that the worst has yet to come. We haven't quite reached the top of the peak yet, the apex. So hopefully everybody is staying safe. They're social distancing. They're doing their part in helping to prevent the spread of coronavirus. A few more cases here locally in the past week. So things are still really up in the air and uncertain as to what's going to happen. All I know is it's going to be at least until April 30th, which is the new mandate, before anybody is allowed to gather in groups again or do any kind of public event that we're all really, at this point, I think, just dying to go out and do. So the sports world, not a lot going on there either. If you're a wrestling fan, it's a WrestleMania this weekend, as you know from our guest we had on last week, former WWE superstar, the genius Lanny Poffo. Other than that, from youth sports all the way up through professional sports, everything has pretty much been postponed, canceled. So not a lot going on. But that doesn't mean we can't talk about sports, because that's what this show is about, local sports in particular. And before I go any further, I want to welcome the man behind the glass, the producer of the show, Brian O'Neill. Brian, what's up?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Are you doing your part in social distancing yourself?
Dave, I am.
Good. And I'm calling in remotely, so I'm doing the show remotely, doing my part. We have on our Empire Access conference line a young lady who's also doing her part as she's calling into the show remotely. She is a member of the Arkport Cancerega Lady Wolves varsity basketball team. And before I give her due introduction, I want to read some of the accomplishments that this young lady has had. And this is just for this year as a senior. This doesn't include all of her underclass years that she has played as a member of the Lady Wolves basketball team. She's a senior who has earned the honors of the Wegmans March Athlete of the Month, the Steuben County League MVP, Steuben County First Team All-Star, Section 5 Class D1 All-Star, and she was chosen to play in the Ronald McDonald basketball game, which unfortunately due to COVID-19 has been postponed. And her team, the Arkport Cancerega Lady Wolves, also made it to the semifinals this year. Man, I'm out of breath with all those accomplishments. What a heck of a season for my guest at this time, Victoria McDaniel. Victoria, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for being on the show. So I just read off a list of accomplishments that you were awarded all this year as a senior. And those are phenomenal. You should be proud of every one of those accomplishments, especially the team one where your team made it to the semifinals. So tell me, with all those accomplishments, Victoria, what drives your success? What makes you so successful at what you do on the basketball court?
I gotta say definitely the fans and coaches, because like during the games and after the games I have people come up to me telling me like how great I am, and just like having such like endless support from my team and my coaches that like push me to do whatever.
How many hours a week do you practice? Because you don't get this good just by sitting on your couch and playing Fortnite and being on Instagram and all the other stuff you guys like to do. I have teenagers, so I know all this stuff. How many hours a week do you practice to hone your skills and get to be where you are? Because it's got to be a lot, right?
Yeah, we probably practice for like 2 hours every day, but I'll like put aside and like go down to the Y and like work a lot, and I'll be in a gym like every weekend.
What kind of drills do you do? I mean, I know for people who, are more skilled and more versed in basketball, tell me, I guess you can tell me in layman's terms, but tell me in basketball terms, what are some really good drills that you do that, make you that exceptional?
I do a lot of 1v1 drills and shooting drills with like practicing my form, and I've done a lot of like post workouts a lot with like my brothers because they're like 6 foot. So like it's nice to like be against somebody that's like bigger.
They don't take it easy on you, do they?
Oh no, not at all. It's nice to like have, especially like brothers that have come from like playing basketball, to like have that experience.
And that's what brothers are for, right?
Yeah.
Are they older?
Yeah, they're all in their 20s.
Oh, okay, so they gotta take care of little sis then.
Yes.
So, do you play a spring sport? Let's transition into that. Were you going to play a spring sport? Because I know as a senior, this has got to be difficult for you to, not have a spring sports season and with everything going on, and you're a senior, you graduate, you're not going to get this time back. So were you interested or going to play a spring sport?
Yes, I was going to play softball.
Softball, okay. Is that a sport that you want to continue on with once you graduate?
I don't think so. Like, I like it a lot, but I'm definitely towards basketball more.
Okay, so you're actually going on this fall to play basketball at Corning Community College for head coach Mike Wright, who, if people have heard that name before, it's probably because Mr. Wright was the principal at Canisteo Greenwood High School for a number of years. Tell me about your decision to go play at Corning Community and what drove that decision, and what are you looking for when you get there in the fall to play as a freshman?
I'm looking to grow as a player and be able to play against like really good competition and be able to like get stronger and work on things that I haven't got a chance to like work on as much.
Are you afraid of the next level of competition? I mean, because, college basketball, any kind of college sport obviously is the next level from high school. It's a time when a lot of the athletes or a lot of the programs kind of weed out certain people that, that kind of are excel more than others or a little bit better than others when they graduate from high school. So the competition is going to be stiffer. Is that something that drives you, something that intimidates you, maybe a little bit of both?
Drives me way more because I like the competition, because the harder it is, the more it will like push me to be a better player. Okay,
great. What are you planning on? What are you enrolling in? What major are you looking at when you go to Corning? Is it something that you're set on yet, or are you still deciding on what you want to do? What career path are you looking at?
I'm looking at something to do with sports, so maybe like exercise science to become an athletic trainer. So I can still follow like sports teams around and like still be a part of the team.
That's great. That's great. You're keeping it in the sports field, and you obviously have a passion for athletics. Before I let you go, what is one message that you would send to a younger one of your peers who's younger than you, who's maybe starting to come up through the ranks, who could look at you as a role model? If you had any words of advice to give, what advice would you give to the younger player who's just kind of starting out, maybe that high school career or even modified or JV?
I would say definitely take the time outside of the gym and work on the stuff you don't think you're good at. Like, use that time to talk to your coach and to ask him, like, what do I need to work on, and take that outside of the gym, because, like, it's definitely worth it. Like, it shows. If you work harder and you, like, push yourself, like, it will show on the court.
And in the classroom as well, right?
Yes, definitely.
We had to get that in there too, because it's just as important to do as good in the classroom as it is on the field, and vice versa. So, and to give it 100% no matter what you do. Victoria, thank you so much for joining our show. Great accomplishments. I'm sure you're proud of them. Your family's proud of them. Your teammates, your classmates, your teachers, and everybody, you know, that's a part of your life. Keep working hard. Good luck at Corning Community. Maybe we can get you on the show in the fall after you've started your season. And I am very hopeful that there will be a season, even with everything going on. But thank you again, and it's been a pleasure having you on.
Yep, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yep. Good luck.
Thank you.
We'll be back in our next segment with Hornell native, former Seattle Seahawk, and Penn State Nittany Lion offensive lineman Bill Dugan when we come back after this break.
This local sports show here on 92.1 The Team is brought to you in part by Rhonda Wilsey. Spring is here. Now's the time to buy or sell your home. When choosing a local real estate agent, choose someone with 2 decades of experience. Rhonda Wilsey has been helping people like you find their new home for over 18 years. Call Rhonda Wilsey at 607-382-4539 or email Rhonda at rhondawilsey@howardhanna.com.
Do you lead an active lifestyle? Are you trying to reach that next level in your fitness or active lifestyle? Stop into Next Level Wellness in Hornell. Next Level Wellness offers CBD options that help promote muscle recovery and regrowth. Their CBD products are the perfect addition to pre- and post-workouts. CBD helps reduce inflammation, allowing you to recover faster from workouts. If you're ready to step up your training or take your game to the next level, then stop into Next Level Wellness or shop online at nxlevelwellness.com. Next Level Wellness, 10 Seneca Street, Hornell, or call 607-385-3188 for more info.
Welcome back to the Prete Is On 92.1 The Team. We have on the studio line Hornell native, former Seattle Seahawk, and Penn State Nittany Lion offensive lineman Bill Dugan. Bill, welcome to the show once again.
Glad to be on, Dave. I hope everything's going well with you.
Yeah, thanks. You know, just working remotely like the rest of the world. It's been kind of an unusual adjustment, especially working from home with the kids hanging out and a lot of kind of chaos during the day. But you know what? That's the new norm, at least for now. And I'm going to do my part. Bill, you were on the show a couple weeks ago. We talked about some NFL free agency, in particular Tom Brady going to my beloved Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I'm going to get to that later in the show when we do our NFL offseason roundtable. The one thing that you wanted to talk about, we didn't have time, and we tried to get you on last week, and we had some technical difficulties, so I want to do it today's show, and let's talk about the new NFL collective bargaining agreement that was just signed back on March the 14th. And Bill, before we get talking about that, let me just read some of the things that were included in the collective bargaining agreement. One of the biggest concessions, and this is via Fox Business News, one of the bigger concessions that the NFL owners made to the players' union relates to the split of league revenue, which amounted to more than $16 million in 2018. That will increase by 48%, which is a huge amount. Players' revenue share, player salaries the minimum for player salary will go, would rise to $610,000 starting the 2020 season. So that's the minimum salary for an NFL player, an increase of $100,000 from this past year. NFL rosters will have more open spots ensuring more jobs to fringe players. So from the roster expansion is going to go from 53 players to 55. And the NFL regular season schedule which is being proposed to take place in 2021, will increase from 16 games to 17 regular season games, with one preseason game being cut out. One more playoff team enters the fray. That begins this year. And, Bill, this is the part that probably gets your attention the most. Pension plans for former NFL players will increase by 10%, while 401k matching will see an initial increase of $30,000, followed by regular annual jumps. So what are your thoughts on the collective bargaining agreement that was agreed upon between the NFL and the NFL Players Association?
I like the whole structure of this was basically for the non-millionaires in the league. The millionaires, like your Tom Brady's and your Drew Breeses, they're millionaires. They're making multi-million dollars. This whole thing was geared for, the people that played the game, the past players that made the league, and it was geared for the minimum wage players. People don't realize that league is 60% of those people on that roster, 60% of those players are minimum wage players, and they've got a substantial $125,000 boost. And I think it was great that they actually geared it so it affects a lot of people that were on a shortcoming for their revenue. And it makes me laugh because you said the minimum wage is now $620,000. What do you think the minimum wage was when I went in the league?
I'm going to say that was the mid-'80s, early to mid-'80s. I'm going to go with $200,000. $25,000. $25,000, the minimum when you began playing for the Seattle Seahawks.
1981.
Wow.
And average salary for a rookie was probably $45,000, $50,000.
Pro sports has come a long way, especially the NFL. Now, Bill, part of that though is and justifiably so, is the risk that you guys take when you're on the field. Obviously, most people, sports fans especially, have heard by now all the CTE cases, former players now later in life experiencing brain trauma, brain damage. You guys definitely, it's a physical sport. You put your bodies on the line. You definitely deserve the money that you make from a perspective that you're putting a lot out there. And you want to make sure that not only are you taken care of for the rest of your lives, but your families are taken care of. Do you think that played a part in the collective bargaining agreement, that the whole CTE thing and the brain damage and the whole safety of the players and things like that?
Yeah, it definitely did, because they had a lot of Hall of Fame players and stuff that have some serious issues going on. Like take Tony Dorsett for example. I mean, he came into the Hall of Fame ceremonies with a cane, and he looked like he didn't even know where he was. I mean, and Earl Campbell's in a wheelchair. I mean, you got all these guys with all these numerous health issues. Obviously it's from playing football, and it's nice that the league stepped up and is actually recognizing this and doing something for the players that are really battered up and are hurting. I mean, we still don't have overall general health insurance, but they've come a long way. I mean, we get major body part replacements like shoulders, hips, knees. Obviously, we have the CTE and anything to do with the brain. I mean, they gave us a dental plan, and and they gave us a dividend toward our health. If anything major ever happens to us, they'll contribute a certain amount of money to help pay the major medical bills. Let's say we have a heart attack or something. And, actually this collective bargaining came a long way to actually fill the needs of a lot of the older players, what they needed.
So just this week, Eric Reed, who was recently released by the Carolina Panthers, he's a defensive back, was for the Panthers, formerly for the 49ers. He's been a controversial figure in the NFL, as he was one of the players that kneeled alongside of Colin Kaepernick. He's definitely been very outspoken about a lot of different issues. He came out this week and said that the collective bargaining agreement was falsely interpreted by some players, which forced them into agreeing to sign it. The Players Association then came out and said, no, that's not true. That's false. And I've heard other players say the same thing, like, after it was signed, I wish I could have my vote back. What's going on with that? Was there language in there that was confusing or misleading? Yeah. And if so, what was it?
Actually, well, here's the thing. Actually, the NFL, after the vote was passed, the NFL actually, in the NFLPA, not the NFL, their own union went in and reworded a paragraph that actually took away disability benefits from the retired players. And a lot of the players, said, you can't change a bargaining agreement after we've already passed. You can't change the wording, and it's their own union that did it. It's not the owners that didn't do it. And, there's some controversy there. But like I said, hey, listen, if they didn't pass that collective bargaining agreement, they would have had a lot worse agreement come next year when they started to renegotiate again, because all that stuff wouldn't have been on the table. Yeah, I mean, there's not even sure there's even going to be an NFL season this year, and they're all guaranteed that money. If they didn't sign an agreement, they could have been out of luck when it came to this season coming up.
And Bill, with my luck as a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, they probably won't have a season, and I won't get to see one of the 2 years that Tom Brady signed. Bill Dugan, Cornell native and former offensive lineman for Seattle Seahawks, Penn State Nittany Lions, and the USFL. Which team in the USFL, Bill?
It was the Philadelphia Stars, Baltimore Stars.
Okay. And, Bill, you also played one season as a replacement player for the New York Giants during the strike of 1987? And that'll be my final question for you for the night, Bill. For the day, I should say. What was it like to play as a replacement player? Do you see the NFL anytime soon going through that same, or any other sport, going through the struggles of having a strike? I know that this collective bargaining deal is in place through 2030, so there shouldn't be any issues for the next 10 years in the NFL. We hope not, at least, because one of the most frustrating things as a sports fan, especially right now living in the world that we live in, is not having sports to watch. But what was it like? What kind of reaction did you get in different places from the players, from the fans, as a replacement player when you played the one season in 1987?
Well, I was in a different situation. Most of the New York Giants, half of like Lawrence Taylor and Jeff Rutledge and Bart Oates, there was a lot of guys that played, actually crossed the picket line and played. So I didn't feel so bad being a vested veteran. But, obviously you're looked down on when you cross the picket line. I mean, that's like any job you do. If you go against a union and you're a union member, it doesn't look good. And I kind of felt bad about that. But, it vested me for another year in the NFL. It gave me another credited season, and, it was good for my benefit. But the quality of the talent was very, very bad. And I'm afraid to say you might see that again in the future, another replacement scab or replacement teams, whatever you want to call it. If this collective bargaining agreement, you might have seen it next year.
Yeah, well, hopefully, if we do, it's a long ways down the road. The NFL has had some struggles in the past, few years with different things between the concussion issues, the kneeling for the anthem, and lost some of its popularity during that period. And it's really a sport that really, just about every American, even if you're not a football fan, everybody watches the Super Bowl. Just that sport that nobody wants to see not played, but from a business perspective, there's always going to be a tug of war between the NFL and the Players Association.
And just to add in real quick about that kneeling, I wish they would have got a grip on that a lot earlier than they did, not let it go as far as it did. My personal opinion, I thought that was terrible that they did that. I think there's a time and a place to voice an opinion about something else. They're employees of the NFL. They treat the flag with respect. I just didn't agree with that whole situation, and I hope nothing like that happens again in the future.
You played in the 80s. Would anybody have ever tried to do that in the 80s when you played?
Wouldn't even think of it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't even
different era we live in.
Your name would be off your locker within 15 minutes.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was accepted by a pretty large contingency of people across our country. So that goes to show how much times have changed between then and now.
When we had the anthem, you had to have your helmet under your right arm, your hand over your heart. You had to be on a hash mark, and you had to stand at the test. You had to do basically a military stance. So things have changed.
Yeah, they sure have. Bill, thanks for joining the show. We really appreciate your insight. Obviously, you're no stranger to the show. You're no stranger to Hornell. You still live right here in the Hornell community, and enjoy talking to you, especially about football, because you're a wealth of knowledge. Too bad. I'm sorry you can't stick around for the roundtable. I know you have things to do, but thank you again for joining, and we'll bring you on again when it gets closer to the season.
Hey, Dave, I appreciate it. It's nice to hear another voice. It's getting kind of lonely around here.
Stay safe and stay healthy and safe, Bill.
Yep, okay. See you later.
Yeah, we'll see you. We'll be back with our final segment of the night with our NFL 2020 off-season roundtable with some local experts and local gurus who want to chime in on how their teams did in the off-season when we come back on the Prete Is On.
The service department at Maple City Dodge is open. Automotive service work is essential work, and Maple City Dodge is able to assist. They're asking customers to allow them to work with minimal direct contact, so they'll happily pick up, sanitize, and return your vehicle. The sales department is also available, but conducting sales remotely. Talk to one of the sales guys as they work from their homes, where they are making great deals. To set an appointment, please call Maple City Dodge, or reach out through Facebook Messenger. Maple City Dodge in Hornell, proud to still be serving you. Mullen Factory Direct Floor Covering has been serving this area for many years. During life's ups and downs, we've never quite experienced anything like this. There's no official day or time set for us all to go back to business as usual, but Mullins wants you to know they're there for you and your flooring projects. And it's also a good time to say thanks to all the loyal customers and remind you to support all area local small businesses to help them stay afloat during this unprecedented time. Be safe and stay healthy. From your friends at Mullen Factory Direct Floor Covering in Almond.
Welcome back to the Prete Is On 92.1 The Team, and I have a special treat for the listeners today. We're going to do our 2020 NFL off-season roundtable. I have local guests who I would like to call them football gurus. They may not call themselves that, but to me they are in their own special way. And I've asked a handful of gentlemen to come on and talk about their team's off-season and evaluate how their teams have done this off-season, their respective teams, the teams that they pledge their allegiance to, that they're loyal to. And in just a moment, I'm going to introduce each of those individuals. Before I do, though, this is how it's going to work. I'm going to ask them, each of them, to give me their thoughts on their team's off-season so far. Some of the moves that they liked, maybe moves they didn't like or that they would like to see made. I would like them to grade their teams from an A+, which obviously is like the greatest, couldn't do any better, it was awesome, to an F-, like it totally was terrible, it sucked, and I don't know what my team's doing. And anywhere in between. And I think with the teams that are going to actually be represented tonight, we're going to see a wide range of different grades. And then I also want them to tell me what they think their team is going to do with the first pick in this year's NFL draft, which, by the way, is still scheduled for April 23rd through the 25th. The dates have not changed, despite the fact that pretty much everything else in the sporting world has been canceled or postponed. The NFL draft still scheduled to go on its regular dates. It will not be held in Vegas as it was supposed to be. Instead, it's going to be a virtual draft, where we're going to be taken to each team's draft room, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be different. So, I want to introduce tonight's guest, and I will also introduce what teams they will be assessing or evaluating, giving their feedback on, the teams that they root for, And I'm going to go in no particular order. First up is hailing from Hornell, New York. Actually, I think they don't all hail from Hornell, New York. This one hails from Hornell, New York. He's a fan of the New York Jets, the Jets, Jets. Justin D'Amato. Justin, welcome to our roundtable.
Hey, Dave. Thank you for having me.
Hey, you're welcome. Thanks for joining us. We'll get to you in just a few minutes. I have representing the Washington Redskins, who have the number 2 pick overall in this year's 2020 NFL Draft, Zach Lincoln. Zach, welcome.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me.
I have, hailing from Canisteo, New York, owner of the Canisteo Valley Redemption Center and a fan of the NFC champion San Francisco 49ers, Roy Forshee. Roy, welcome.
Thanks, Dave. Good to see you.
I can't really see it, but good to hear your voice, Roy. Thanks.
Oh, good.
By the way, thank you all. Yeah, thank you all for doing your part and staying away from the studio and calling in remotely. We all appreciate that. As Brian had reported on the news update, 11 more cases as of this weekend in the Hornell area, so a scary thing there. Representing the Indianapolis Colts, I have Nick Cole. Nick, welcome and thank you for joining the show.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
And to represent, we'll call them because we are pretty close to Buffalo, the hometown Buffalo Bills, the great Paul Keeley. Paul, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Dave, thanks for having me. Go Bills.
All right, we're going to get to the Bills last. I know you're going to say we're saving the best for last, but I'm actually saving the hometown team for last. I'm going to start this off giving you my assessment, my evaluation of my beloved Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 2020 NFL offseason. And as a Bucs fan, I couldn't be any more happier than what the than what the Bucs have done. I mean, we got the GOAT. We got the greatest of all time, Tom Brady, a 9-time Super Bowl quarterback, a 6-time Super Bowl champion quarterback. Say what you want about Tom Brady. I know a lot of people that aren't Patriots fans or now Bucs fans don't like Tom Brady. They don't care for Tom Brady, but he's the GOAT. And I don't care if he's 43 years old or going to be 43 when the season starts. The guy is a winner. He's won 6 Super Bowls. He's got weapons in Tampa Bay. Now, lack of offensive line scares me. I'll get to that in a few minutes. But you have to understand, if you're not a Bucs fan, you have to understand the excitement. This is a team that has not made the playoff years. It's the second longest drought in the NFL behind the Cleveland Browns. This is a team that's never really had a great quarterback. You could say Doug Williams. He wasn't great when he was with the Bucs. He won a Super Bowl with the Redskins. You could say Steve Young. That was circa Steve Young of the 49ers when he became great. Jameis Winston, I don't even want to hear that argument because he threw 30 interceptions last year, never lived up to the hype of being a number 1 pick from 2015. 30 interceptions in one season. Tom Brady has thrown 29 in 4 years. So look at that comparison. So, I've heard the people say, well, he's going to be 43. He's going to be 43. He's Tom Brady. It doesn't matter. And as a Bucs fan, it doesn't matter that he's 43 because he's not Jameis Winston. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited that they brought back Shaq Barrett, JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul, and Dominic and Sue, 3 of their 4 defensive linemen that hit free agency. They brought 3 of the 4 back. They did lose Nassib to, I believe, the Raiders. Their defense is set. I'm a little concerned about the defensive backfield. That was kind of their Achilles heel last year. They haven't done anything to improve it. They need to improve their offensive line if they want Brady to have any kind of chance because the guy's not mobile. He's not nimble. You can't let him, take hits every other time, the defender gets past the line. They need offensive line help. They need another running back. And until they address those, I refuse to give them an A+, but I am going to give them an A based on the fact that they brought in Tom Brady, based on the fact that they signed 3 of their Pro Bowl defensive linemen and brought them back for the 2020 season and beyond. I think the Bucs, with the 14th pick overall, if they don't trade it, are going to go with an offensive lineman. They have to. I don't see any other thing that they can do at this point. They need to beef up that offensive line and give Brady some protection. So I'm going to go to my panel, and let's start, like I said, I'm going to start randomly. Let's start with Justin D'Amato, who is a fan of the Jets, Jets, Justin. As a Jets fan, it's got to be frustrating. I feel your pain, man, because the Bucs and the Jets are very similar, teams that haven't been real successful in the past decade. What do you got for me on the Jets? What do you think of their offseason? What are they going to do in the draft?
Well, I think the highlight of the offseason was definitely Tom Brady leaving the AFC East. But the main concern coming in was, like your Buccaneers, the offensive line. That was last season. They were 31st in run blocking and 30th in pass blocking. Le'Veon Bell, averaged for a career low of 3.2 yards per carry. And Sam Darnold was kind of, back and forth. I don't think playing up to what he can maximize out as. However, in terms of the offensive line, they did upgrade that a lot this offseason. They brought in tackle George Font, center Connor McGovern, guard Greg Van Roten, and they brought back Alex Lewis, who started 12 games in 2019. So that was definitely a big upgrade from last season. However, they did lose Robbie Anderson. He was signed by the Carolina Panthers, who, in my opinion, what has been the best Jets wide receiver in the last couple of years. As of right now, like I said, the offensive line was the concern. But wide receiver is also a big concern. There's 2 names that pop out at me for guys who can really contribute, and that would be Jamison Crowder and Quincy Enunwa. They also did sign Rashad Perriman, who you could probably tell me more about him.
He did great with the ball. Did great.
Yeah. So definitely, it's a little concerning because they don't have too much after those 3. However, with the draft, they have the 11th overall pick. A lot of sources that I've seen are saying they're going to go after the offensive lineman, and in particular Andrew Thomas out of Georgia, he was a 3-year starter, top-notch run blocker. Like I said, the Jets were 31st in that column last year. He does need to improve a little bit on protecting the quarterback, which Sam Darnold's definitely going to need that protection. But another thing I've seen, like I said, the Jets haven't drafted a offensive lineman since 2010 in the first round. So with the improvements they've made at that position so far with free agency, a name that's came around that the Jets seem to be high of is C.D. Lamb, a wide receiver out of Oklahoma. Like I said, they need protection for Sam Darnold, and they lost Robbie Anderson. So overall with the Jets, as of right now, I'll give them a C. If they can make the right decision during the draft, I can go, B- to B on this offseason.
That's usually a higher grade than most Jets fans would give the Jets. So that's good, Justin. Thanks. There's some hope there in Buffalo, and especially, like I said, with Tom Brady leaving the division, I think every team there has a lot better chance now of contending for that division. So speaking of offensive linemen, Trent Williams, his name has come up in trade talks for the Washington Redskins. So let's transition to the Redskins fan that's on our panel, Zach Lincoln. Zach, what's going on with Trent Williams? What do you think of the Redskins offseason so far? What are they going to do in the draft? Give them a grade.
All right, so Trent Williams has been really tricky the past season and a half. He's still under contract for another year with us. Obviously, phenomenal left tackle. He's just so essential to our offensive line. Not having him last year, our quarterbacks just got eaten alive. So I think our idea was to keep him. He complained about it being a personnel issue. The GM, the medical staff mishandling some concussions, things like that. Once they were gone, when we got rid of them in the overhaul this offseason, we thought, hey, there's a chance of signing him. After we talked to him, he comes back to the money again. So I think the whole time it's just been about the money. He thinks he's worth more than what we're willing to pay him. We'd like to offload him. I guess he's looking for $20 million, and we're looking for a second-round draft pick. So at this point, one of us, either the team has to budge or he has to budge for him to go anywhere. And I don't know. I don't want to see him sitting around on our team for another season and not playing. If he is on our team, I'd like to see him step up, play the season out, and hit free agency with another good season under his belt. But honestly, I don't know. It's just too high of an asking price for any trade right now, I think. But overall, for our offseason, I think the biggest thing has been our personnel overhaul, just complete overhaul. New coach, obviously. Get Gruden out of there. He's had 5 bad seasons in a row. Replace him with Ron Rivera. I think he's a great coach. I think the main thing we've struggled with is keeping our team in line, the discipline issues, and just basically nobody really wants to win right now. They say they do, but when they get out there, they don't play like it. So I think he's the kind of guy who's going to turn that around. Just a full culture change. Hopefully, that starts right off from the first time they actually get together and do some training and stuff. But basically, the first step he did was he walked in the locker room, took out the ping pong table, just basically told him no more games. If you're on the team, you're on the team to win. If you're on the team for money, we're just going to let you go. And I think that's a huge deal, especially because of how we've been lately. So far this offseason, I think my 3 favorite signings would be Kendall Fuller. We never should have let him leave. He was obviously better with us than he was last year, but bringing him back, I think he'll reach his potential again. So that's definitely my favorite signing. Brandon Scherf on the offensive line. Right now, we need as much help as we can get there, and he's an absolute monster. Last year, I saw some videos of him at training camp. They had to put weights and use harnesses against him just during drills, just to have it be fair for our defensive line. So he's a monster. Keep him with a franchise tag until we can work out something bigger for him. And then Thomas Davis, coming out of Carolina. He obviously worked with Rivera a lot of experience there, and I think that's going to be really important because our linebackers are young, but they're really talented, so they could use somebody like that. He's also just had another great season, so I think he's going to be a big addition there. As far as other signings go, Kyle Allen, backup quarterback. We needed a backup quarterback, but they thought maybe we're going to bring in somebody bigger, maybe a Flacco, somebody that can really push Haskins. I think Haskins is our guy. I think signing Allen instead of a guy, big name there to replace him, I think Allen is just there to push him. So hopefully Haskins sticks around and reaches potential, but that was pretty important to the offseason as well. So right. I think before I grade us, I think a lot of Redskins fans right now are thinking kind of how the 49ers season went last year. They got the number 2 pick, picked up an edge rusher, changed the game for them, and then went to Super Bowl. So they went from, I think, 4-12 the year before. We were 3-13, so they're kind of seeing a lot of similarities there. I don't see us as the 49ers whatsoever. So a lot of the fans would grade us, I think, a bit lower based on the fact that we haven't made any big splashes in free agency. We haven't thrown money around. We tried to sign Amari Cooper. He was a little bit too expensive. I think, he chose Dallas over us, and that was kind of a slap in the face, but I think he was too expensive for what I would have paid for him. But the idea is to get him off of Dallas, so we pay extra to keep him away from playing us twice a year. He just destroyed us last year. So I think that other than that, we've been pretty much just signing, guys based on character, guys that want to come here and win, guys that want to come here and do something. That's positive in my eyes. We're not, the Browns signing every big name we can find just to try to stack our roster. So I think, in the long haul, looking at this offseason, if we can figure out Trent Williams, we'd be a B- this offseason. As long as Trent Williams is still just kind of lingering around as a big question, I would just give us a C+ probably. Hopefully we figure that out. We still got $30 million in cap space. We do need, a couple other positions filled here, so maybe another big wide receiver. We got a lot of young guys. We got 3 rookies from last year that are just phenomenal wide receivers, but you need somebody experienced in there to kind of guide them.
Yeah, your draft pick. Who's your draft pick?
My draft pick, so we got number 2 draft pick, obviously, and just like I was talking with the edge rusher, I think we're going with Chase Young. I don't see any other option, really. Best player in the draft. The Bengals most likely aren't taking him. Joe Burrow was probably going to the Bengals. So if not, we got Chase Young, 16.5 sacks last year. And now that we switched up 4-3 with Jack Del Rio as a defensive coordinator, I think he's an ideal fit. But if we don't choose Chase Young, I'd say Isaiah Simmons out of Clemson. Based on need, we needed another athletic, kind of hybrid linebacker, and he would fit. But a lot of talk about the Redskins taking Tua or somebody trading up for Tua. I just don't see that happening. And if somebody trades up, we're going to have to get multiple first-round picks in the second round at least. So I don't see that happening. I just think that we're going to Chase Young, the safe choice.
Yeah, it's a good pick. Riverboat Ron's going to get that team turned around. You watch. Give him one season. Next up is Nick Cole. Nick, you're a fan of the Colts. Let's have your 3-minute assessment of the Colts, and let's hear what you got, what your thoughts are on your Indianapolis Colts.
Well, Dave, if we look at the 2019 season, that was quite a huge disappointment for us. Obviously, with Andrew Luck retiring in preseason and having Jacoby Brissett as our main quarterback, I thought, going into Week 6, everything was going to be good, sitting at 3-2. But then to have that skid at the end just showed really that Jacoby isn't the guy. And in our offseason, obviously, some of the biggest things that we've had was Philip Rivers come in. We got DeForest Buckner from the 49ers. So we got a lot of good stuff going on. But I would definitely say that going into the draft, we're going to need some wide receiver help. T.Y. Hilton obviously is the team leader, but behind him was only Zach Pascal. So really, I think Philip Rivers coming in is going to be a big help. A lot of people talk about his interception rate, especially when he's with the Chargers. But going into the draft, looking for wide receivers and probably an edge rusher to go around with DeForest Buckner. Well, I would grade the Colts right now at an A-. And I'm actually kind of surprised that Ballard went out and spent that money, traded that first-round draft pick for Buckner. That was quite a huge surprise considering his conservatism. He usually likes to build through the draft and have a younger team. So, big things are coming, whether they draft a quarterback or not, to either have Rivers kind of groom him or push Rivers or push Jacoby or whatever. I think we're going to see probably a lot more offensive players going to the Colts in the draft.
Okay, so DeForest Buckner traded from the San Francisco 49ers to the Indianapolis Colts, which segues into our 49ers fan, Roy Forshy. Roy, kind of a big loss, I think, losing Buckner. He was kind of that one of those rocks on the offensive line, but they did bring one of them back who has local ties. His fiancée is from Arkport, and that is Eric Armstead. They re-signed Armstead. What's going on with your Niners? Do you like their offseason so far? They are the defending NFC champions. What do they have in store for 2020?
Well, I got to tell you, Dave, for me, the offseason, that was the biggest move, is moving DeForest Buckner to Indianapolis. And, I'm not surprised at all. We got so much depth at that position. We got Eric Armstead, we got Dee Ford, and, Thomas Solomon, and really Julian Taylor, too. They're all really solid players. And what I'm thinking is we're just going to make up for it in the draft, which I'll get to in a little bit. But it allowed us to get a number 13 from Indy, which was huge. And that we're going to still keep our 31st. So we're going to have 2 in the first round. And, he's a monster. I hate to see the guy go. But honestly, we're going to be able to rotate, and we're going to be able to keep that frickin' front defensive line going. And we all know we got Bosa and Quan Alexander. There's not really going to be a lot of fall off there. And so I think it was a good move for us to get the number 13 for him. Now, as far as the rest of the off season, I mean, there wasn't really a lot going on at all. I mean, we signed some 1-year tenders. We're keeping quarterback Nick Mullins in the third spot, Jeff Wilson as running back. I mean, we're pretty deep in that position. We got Mozart, and we got Matt Breida, which I think we're going to sign him to a 1-year tender, and then try and trade him to get something in maybe the third or fourth round in the draft. But overall, I mean, honestly, I got to give the team about a B+. I felt, they're going to keep staying young. There's not going to be a lot of fall off. We're not losing anybody per se that's really going to hurt us. So, and I think we're going to address 2 positions that we really need to address. So, I mean, I would say probably in the draft right now, we're going to get that 13 pick, and we're probably going to go after C.D. Lamb, I would guess. Good kid from Oklahoma, 6'2", 191. Can stretch the field. He's quick. He shakes a lot of tackles. And we really need somebody to go with Deebo Samuel. I mean, that kid, he looked pretty good this year. And if we can put this kid on the other side, and maybe Kendrick Bourne can step up a little bit, I think we're going to be fine. Unfortunately, I mean, I hate to say, the only person I really worry about is the quarterback position. I mean, I love him. I love Jimmy G, but man, he worries me a little bit. In the big games. I mean, he did step up in the New Orleans game, the playoffs this year, and bring him down the field. But when they need him in the fourth quarter there in the Super Bowl, I mean, he just didn't have it. But he didn't have the help, either, a wide receiver. I mean, I think obviously we got one of the best, if not the best, tight end. Right going.
George Kittle's a beast, and I can tell you right now, I bet that Bill Belichick in New England would love to have Jimmy Garoppolo back, considering his options that he has after he lost Brady. The Niners also lost Emmanuel Sanders in the offseason. Not a huge loss, I don't think, Roy. Still a loss, and so they do have to replace that receiver position as well. I do have to move on. Thank you, Roy, for the Niners breakdown. And finally, last but not least, and by the way, I did try to get a Patriots fan to come on. I know a couple, and they are awful salty right now. They wouldn't even respond to my request. So I think they're a little bit butthurt that Brady left the Niners and headed south to, Tampa Bay. But I do have who I feel is now the AFC East favorite. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills, and I have Paul Keeley here to break down the Bills.
Yeah, so Buffalo addressed some major needs in this off season, and I really like what Bean has done here as a GM. So a lot of different positions, but obviously the Stephon Diggs was the big splash. Buffalo was quiet for a while, it seemed, when the free agency period started, and then they made a big splash, which really shored up their legitimate wide receiver core now with Diggs, Beasley, and Brown. Shaq Lawson and Jordan Phillips signed contracts after big years with Buffalo. But honestly, the signings of Vernon Butler, Quentin Jefferson, and Addison, it's going to create a good rotation, with Oliver. Harrison Phillips will be back next year healthy. Jerry Hughes, and their defensive line was a source of their strength last year. So I think they lost 2 guys, but they added 3, which is going to create some great depth for them. One of the biggest, I think, signings was re-signing Quentin Spain. He had a great year last year for Buffalo on the offensive line. That whole offensive line really was revamped and retooled, and they really got great production out of those guys. So he was a Buffalo Bill that was, kind of testing the market there. But they made him a priority to re-sign him. They also signed Darrell Williams, who started over 100 games the last, I think, 5 years for Carolina. So he's going to compete for some time, but he's going to add some depth. A big loss to mention is Lorenzo Alexander. Obviously, his production for his age was incredible, but his locker room presence, that's going to be hard to replace. They signed A.J. Klein and Tyler Makovich. So we'll see on that front. Both guys that are, have had some fairly productive NFL careers, but that locker room presence will be key. And then lastly, what's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. How about the running back position? You lost Frank Gore. You have Singletary. He's a good running back. A little bit fragile. What about running back?
So I'm going to address that in the draft part. Lastly, with the offseason, E.J. Gaines was a member of the Bills as a defensive back. They signed him back to add depth. And then kind of a low-risk, high-reward with Josh Norman with his contract. There's not a guarantee he'll make the team, so it's kind of one of those things, kind of show why you deserve to still be playing in the NFL. So I didn't mind that pick at all. So I guess if I was to grade their off-season acquisitions, it would be a B+ to an A-. Right now they're at pick 54. So with the needs that they had in the off-season, which they really have addressed, I think they can go best player available. But I would like to see them, like you mentioned, Dave, draft a running back. And there's a couple guys, I don't know if they'll be there or not. They could be. A.J. Dillon out of Boston College, Jonathan Taylor out of Wisconsin, and J.K. Dobbins out of Ohio State. One of those three backs, they could be available at that point, and they're all, downhill in between the tackle runners. That'll provide a good depth 1-2 combo with Devin Singletary.
All right, great assessment. Guys, you did an awesome job. I know the NFL season is still a ways away. Hopefully we have one this year or some semblance of one. The draft, however, coming up in just a couple of weeks. It'll be exciting. I know, it gives us sports fans and us NFL fans something to look forward to in this time of no sports at all. I appreciate your guys' time. That does wrap up our show. We are out of time. So you've been listening to the Prete Is On 92.1 The Team. Dave Prete, your host. We'll be back next Saturday at 9 a.m. And before I go, I want to thank all of our first responders, all of the people, our essential workers, and all the people who are keeping us safe and healthy during this really strange and uncertain time. All the work you do is greatly appreciated. It's not forgotten, and keep doing what you're doing, and we appreciate it so much. So that's our show for today. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week.